Hi all. In the last class, we were discussing some aspects of frequency modulation, and in this class, we are going to see a new kind of modulation. It's called pulse modulation, and the various aspects of pulse modulation will be discussed. The circuits or the block diagrams related to pulse modulation will be discussed, and let us see what pulse modulation actually is. So, in general, you can categorize modulation into two types. One is that we just learned, that is the continuous wave modulation. The second one is pulse modulation that we are going to learn. So, we have seen that in the continuous wave modulation, you have two categories. One is amplitude modulation, the other one is angle modulation. Angle modulation is subdivided into frequency modulation and phase modulation. So, what we have learned till now is about amplitude modulation as well as frequency modulation. So, we have covered both of these types. Okay, we have omitted phase modulation, which is not in the syllabus. So, you have basically amplitude modulation and frequency modulation that we have learned in continuous wave modulation. Why is it called continuous wave modulation? That is because the carrier that we are going to use or that we are using in continuous wave modulation is continuous. What does it mean? It means you are using a sine wave, or it doesn't have any discontinuities. So, a wave is considered as discontinuous whenever the wave doesn't have a derivative at any point. So, this is a sine wave. You can consider as a triangular wave like this, and if you analyze this triangular wave, you have two discontinuous points. One is here, the other one is here. Okay. So, at this point, there is no derivative defined for the waveform. So, you can say that this waveform is a discontinuous waveform in that aspect. Okay. So, this is not a continuous wave. So, if you take a sine wave, then it is a continuous wave because at each point the derivative is clearly defined. Okay. So, that is why these modulations are called continuous wave modulation, because we are using sine waves to modulate. In the case of both in the case of amplitude modulation as well as in the case of frequency modulation, angle modulation, we are using sine waves, continuous waves. But in the case of pulse modulation, we are using discrete waves. Discrete waves means in the case of pulse modulation, we will be using something like a square wave. Okay, pulses, these are called pulses. So, we will be using pulse like waves to modulate upon. So, your carrier is a pulsed wave. So, this is your carrier and this is a pulsed form of a carrier. Okay. And in that case, there are two kinds. One is an analog pulse modulation, the other one is a digital pulse modulation. So, the analog pulse modulation, as in the case of continuous wave, it is divided into pulse amplitude modulation and pulse time modulation. The pulse time modulation is subdivided into pulse width modulation and pulse position modulation. Pulse amplitude modulation is somewhat similar to amplitude modulation, except that the carrier is a pulse, square pulse, a continuous train of square pulse. But in the case of pulse width modulation, it is somewhat like a frequency modulation, where you are using the time aspect, that is the horizontal aspect, to code the information. In pulse amplitude modulation, we are using the amplitude aspect of the pulse to code information onto it. But in the case of a pulse time modulation, we will be using the time aspect, that is the x-axis of the pulse train, to code information into it. We will see how it is done. Okay. In the case of pulse width modulation, the width of the pulse, this is the width of the pulse that is used to modulate. The width represents the information content in the wave. And in the case of position, the position of the pulse relative to the reference will be representing the information content that we are going to transmit. Okay. So, we will see those in detail. As of now, we can just remember what I have said. And the digital modulation, in the case of pulse modulation, is not actually a kind of modulation, it is a kind of a representation. We will see, and we will be discussing just the pulse code modulation in the digital modulation technique. DPCM, or differential pulse code modulation, or the delta modulations will not be discussed. Okay. Now, let us see a concept called the concept of sampling. Okay, it is very important in the case of pulsed communication, and let us see what it is. Imagine we have a sine wave like this. The red color wave represents our sine wave, and as the definition says, it is a continuous wave, and the derivative is defined all over the waveform. Okay, I have marked some points over it. Okay, in green color I have marked some points on it, and you can see that if you have these green color dots, you can just join in between the green color dots to completely reconstruct the wave. Okay, so how small the gap between these green color dots are, the perfect will be that much perfect will be our uh, reconstructed wave. Okay, so it means that you don't have to send the entire information content inside a wave towards the receiver. Okay, you just have to send the critical points inside a wave, just those critical points towards the receiver, so that he can predict what is in between two adjacent green colored dots. Okay, so these green colored dots represent samples in a wave, and you can take any number of samples in a wave, and in this case I have taken say 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 samples in half of the wave. So the complete wave is like this. So if I take another 7 cycles, then it means that there are 14 samples per cycle of the wave. Okay, this is one cycle of the wave, and there will be 14 samples in a cycle. Okay, separated by equivalent distance, equal distances. The samples, adjacent samples are separated in time by equal distance. So I can imagine 14 samples per cycle in this case, and hence there is a time delay between two samples, and that time delay is represented by Ts, and that Ts is called sampling time. So this is called sampling time. So in this graph I have represented x as a function of time. Okay, so this is your x, so this is your x, and time on y axis. So x is represented as a function of time. Okay, so I can call it as x of time, x of t. So this is x of t because it is a function of time, so I can call it as x of t, and x of t represents x of t, this is x of t, this x of t represents our continuous wave. Okay, so continuous wave is represented by x of t, that is the red colored wave is represented by x of t. I'll just write it in red color. So my continuous wave is represented by x of t. So that is the function, and when I do the process of sampling, what I do is I will be taking only specific function values of x of t at specified intervals. Okay, my interval is my sampling time, and I can decrease or increase the interval depending upon the frequency of this wave. Okay, depending upon the frequency of this wave or the time period of this wave, I can always increase or decrease. It is better to decrease sampling time so that you get more accurate kind of a sampling. Okay, so more the number of samples per cycle, the better the quality of the information is, better the regeneration capacity. Okay, so when you have this kind of a sampling, it is a good sampling condition. You have 14 samples in a cycle, and you can easily reconstruct the wave. Okay, just by joining the adjacent samples, you can reconstruct the entire wave. And the next thing is our sampled signal. So the green colored dots are represented by x of n. So let me write it like this. So my green colored dots are represented as x of n. So what is x of n? X of n is the sampled signal of x of t, and x of t at points x of n ts. Okay, so there are points. This is x of 1 ts, x of 2 ts, x of 3 ts. So this distance is ts. So from this point, suppose if I consider this as 0, then this is at a point time 1 ts, 1 into ts. This is at a time 2 into ts. This is at a time 3 into ts. This is at a time 4 into ts. So I have sampled signal x of n equal to x of n into ts. Okay. So this is how I write it. So I can erase this one also and write it in red color. Okay. So I am writing it in red color just to stick on to the conventions. X of n ts, where ts is our sampling time. Okay. You can have a terminology called the sampling frequency, which is defined by the inverse of sampling time. So this is our sampling frequency. Thus the essence of what we have seen here is that if you want to transmit a sine wave like this, a continuous wave like this, you don't have to transmit the entire wave. Instead, you can transmit certain points in that wave, so that you can reconstruct the entire wave from these points by predicting what is in between two adjacent points. Okay. So that is the essence of sampling, the concept of sampling. Okay. So I have taken specified interval function values with an interval of n ts, so that represents my sampled signal, where n equal to 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. It is a set of integers. Okay. So this is the concept of sampling. Okay. Now, for the sampling to happen, we need to understand a theorem called Shannon-Nyquist sampling theorem. Okay. So this is the name of the theorem. It is simply called as sampling theorem, and it states that any continuous time varying signal, so it should be a continuous and a time varying signal with a maximum modulating frequency of f max. So that signal should contain a frequency, the maximum frequency should be f max. Then it can be represented into samples. As we have seen previously, it can be represented into samples by omitting the whatever information is between the two adjacent samples. You can have just the samples. Okay. And can be recovered from the samples. So we will be transmitting only the green colored dots, but the entire wave can be constructed by the receiver by just having the green colored dots, by just joining between the green colored dots or predicting what is in between the green colored dots. Okay. So can be recovered from the samples if and only if the sampling frequency is at least twice the maximum of the given signal, frequency of the given signal. So suppose the signal that we are going to transmit, this is our continuous wave signal. In this case, it is a single sine wave, but there are cases where you can have multiple sine waves. For example, in the case of audio signal, the maximum frequency that you can encounter is 20 kilohertz, right? So there is a concert happening in a place, and you need to transmit that to another place. Then the maximum frequency, the audible range is 20 kilohertz. So that is your f max in this case. So your minimum frequency is 20 hertz, the maximum frequency is 20 kilohertz. So we are least bothered about the minimum frequency, we are more bothered about the maximum frequency that we are going to transmit. So if that is fixed, and if you know that that is the maximum frequency, then the sampling frequency, the rate at which you sample, okay, that sampling frequency is should be greater than or equal to twice the maximum frequency. Suppose you are going to transmit this thing, this concert, then the frequency of sampling should be twice 20 kilohertz, which means 40 kilohertz at least, 40 kilohertz at least. So better it is more than 40 kilohertz. 40 kilohertz is the lowest possible sampling rate, sampling frequency, and ideally it should be very very high. Okay, so it is better to have a higher sampling frequency than the Shannon-Nyquist equation. So the equation will be Fs equal to 2 times the maximum frequency. So that represents the lowest boundary, the lowest limit at which you can sample a signal. So in this case, it will be like one sample in the upper cycle, one sample in the lower cycle. That is the lowest possible sampling. Okay. So why it is significant is that in order to reconstruct, we need to have a lot of points here. Okay. Suppose you are having one point here, the next point of sample comes here, and the next point comes here. What will be the waveform that you will be getting? You will be connecting this dot to this dot and then to this dot. You will not get a sine wave. So the entire purpose of transmission has failed then. So that is why we need to have more and more kind of a sampling, and that is why in this case in a single cycle you had two. Okay, so this is, suppose this is your maximum modulating frequency. For that frequency you are only having 2 samples per cycle. So that is the least possible thing you can do. The best thing is you have to go for higher and higher sampling frequency. The problem is that if you take a very high sampling frequency, then your data will be much bulkier, or you need to have a very high bandwidth for transmitting that data. Okay. So there is a limit, or there should be a trade-off between how much samples you can take and how much quality you have to have in your transmission. Okay. So these are the two boundaries, and you have to choose between the two, the quality versus the bandwidth requirement. Okay. And you cannot go beyond a frequency that is less than twice the maximum modulating frequency. That is what Shannon-Nyquist sampling theorem says. You have to ensure that your sampling frequency is much higher than 2 times the frequency of the maximum modulating signal. Okay. So in this case, your maximum modulating signal has frequency like it is the inverse of this time period. Okay. So that's it. And let us see what is happening if you undersample a signal. So this is your signal. It is a sine wave of a particular frequency. It oscillates like this. And when you undersample, that is, you take samples rarely. Okay, one sample here, the other sample here, the other sample here, the other sample here, and you connect the dots, then you get something like this. And this is the end or the received signal that you are getting at the end point. So this is not the signal that we are trying to transmit. It is a sine wave, but you are getting some kind of a random wave here. Okay, let us increase the number of samples here. So in this case, I am going to take one sample at the peak, the other sample at the trough, which means there are 2 samples per cycle. That is the Fs equal to 2 Fmax condition. That is, sampling is done twice in a single cycle. So one sample here, the other sample here, one sample here, the other sample here, like that. Okay. So when you are joining the dots, you will be getting some kind of a wave which is similar to the sine wave that you originally had, but it's not in a perfect condition. Okay. So you have somewhat managed to represent the shape of the wave, but it's not the exact shape of the wave that you try to transmit. Okay. So what we have to do is that we need to increase the number of samples in the wave. So I am increasing the number of samples. Let me count the number of samples: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay. So that much samples here. 8 samples. So this is like 8 samples per cycle. Okay, so there are 8 samples in this cycle, and when you are taking 8 samples in a cycle, you can join the dots and get a better waveform. Okay, so when you increase the number of samples per cycle, then you will be getting a more quality waveform at the output. So this is the essence of Shannon-Nyquist sampling theorem. Alright, let us now consider our first candidate, that is pulse amplitude modulation. The first of the analog pulse modulation, that is pulse amplitude modulation. So this is our message signal. This, as usual, we have taken a sine wave, and this is our carrier signal, which is a train of pulses. So this is our sampling signal or the carrier signal. So this is our carrier. So you can see that there are multiple pulses coming inside the single time period of this modulating signal. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8. Yeah, that is 8 samples are coming, or 8 pulses are coming, which means it is much higher than our Nyquist sampling rate. So our Nyquist sampling rate is 2 times the waveform's frequency. But now we are going to take 8 samples per cycle. Okay, as per Nyquist, the minimum condition is 2 samples per cycle, but we have taken 8 samples per cycle. Okay, so what we do is we multiply this waveform and this waveform. So when you suppose the value of this waveform is 1, the amplitude of the waveform is 1, then you multiply x with 1, then what happens is at each point it gets scaled like this. It gets scaled like this. 1 into, suppose this point is 0.1, 1 into 0.1, 0.1, 1 into 0.2, 0.2, 1 into 0.3, 0.3, 1 into minus 0.1, minus 0.1, 1 into minus 0.2, minus 0.2, 1 into minus 0.3, minus 0.3, like that. So it gets scaled like this. So the amplitude of the pulses will be representing our message. Okay. So this is a block diagram for generating pulse amplitude modulated signal, and you are giving a modulating signal as the input to a low pass filter. Why do you require a low pass filter here? That is because we need to ensure that the maximum frequency entering is not greater than our F max. So suppose I am having a lot of frequencies. So if I am recording my audio, then I will be having a lot of frequencies coming into this. Say my audio signal will be having a frequency like this, another high frequency like this, or another frequency which is very low like this. That represents my bass guitar, or very high frequency that represents my noise, some noise. Okay, lot of things coming into my microphone. Okay, so all these are coming into my microphone. My microphone is recording everything or taking in everything. So the green colored wave up to the this yellow colored wave is required, the blue colored wave is required, and the green colored wave is required, but I don't want this red colored wave, but unfortunately it gets into my microphone. So I need to remove that, because I am not going to use it for transmission, because I am just concerned about the other 3 waveforms. So I will be just removing this high frequency signal. So a low pass filter, what it does is that it will be allowing all the frequencies that are lower than a particular frequency of interest. So if I don't want this red colored frequency, then I will be making a low pass filter which will allow anything which is lesser than a particular frequency, and it will block anything which is greater than a particular frequency, called the cutoff frequency, and I will ensure that my cutoff frequency for the low pass filter is much lower than this red colored wave. Okay, so in that case, what happens is the red colored wave will not be allowed to go into the next stage. Thus I can ensure that this is the maximum frequency that can come into the modulation system. That is why there should be a low pass filter, because whenever you are using pulsed communication, you have to sample the signal. Here what you are doing is you have sampled the modulating signal. Okay, so these are all samples of the amplitude samples of the modulating signal coded onto the carrier. So when you are doing this, you have to ensure that this is the maximum frequency that is existing in your modulating signal, and you have designed the system so that it can convert only up to the maximum frequency. That is why this low pass filter is very important in this case, and it will allow all frequencies to pass through except something which is higher than the cutoff frequency of this low pass filter. So any frequency which is higher than the cutoff frequency will be blocked by the low pass filter, and it reaches our multiplexer. And what it does is that there is a pulse generator coming here, and it will generate a continuous train of pulse like this, and this multiplexer will multiply both these waves, these two waves, first two waves. And in the reverse process of demodulation, what you do is there should be a system for recovering the message signal from the pulse amplitude signal. So the pulse amplitude signal will be given to a reconstruction filter. So reconstruction filter, what it essentially does is that it will be following the envelope of the wave, okay, as in the case of amplitude modulation. So it will be following the envelope of the wave, and the envelope will be given, the output will be given as the envelope of the wave. So the information in the envelope is converted into our message signal by a set of capacitor and resistor arrangement. Then the equalizer will be adjusting the amplitude and all, and the message signal will be coming out of it. So this one is a continuous wave. So at this point, a discrete wave, which is a pulse amplitude discrete wave, will be converted into a continuous wave, and the amplitude of the wave will be properly scaled so that you get proper amplification. Then it is given to the output. Okay. So this is how you will be handling a pulse amplitude modulated signal. Okay, then let's stop at this point, and we will see the other modulation techniques in the next video. Thank you all.